Well, y'all know that you don't need to be here. It's very lilting.
I'm Teacher Mike, and this is the third episode of Ask an American, my new series in which I interview people from the United States so that you can practice listening to English while also learning about the United States and the people of the United States. Our guest today is someone who currently lives in my neighborhood in Silver Spring, Maryland, but is originally from the state of Kentucky. So, Carol, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Carol Bennett, and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. And I am spent my entire career as mostly a government employee, and I'm an attorney.
All right, thank you. And first question, do you speak any languages besides English? And if so, how well do you speak them and why did you learn them?
So when I was a kid, I took years and years of Spanish, but I never became fluent, which I always regretted. So I feel like if I was immersed in Spanish, I could pick up all that again, but I don't really speak any languages. My husband, on the other hand, speaks several. He speaks, aside from English, of course, he speaks German, decent Russian, some Armenian, some Italian, and some Spanish.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you think that your English grammar is?
I hope my English grammar is at least a 9. Since I'm an attorney, I do a lot of writing documents and writing for an audience that needs to be persuaded. And so I think it's very important that you don't have any mistakes in that.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think English grammar is?
Well, it depends on the context. Obviously in a business context, it's a little more important, but among friends or socially, I don't think it's is as important.
How do you feel when you see or hear other native English speakers make grammar mistakes?
Now it really depends on again, in the business context, you're like, maybe that's not so great. But socially, I don't really think too much about it. And sometimes there's some regional variations. Sometimes it's maybe not so much a mistake as just a variation of where the person's from.
And how do you feel when someone who is not a native English speaker makes grammar mistakes or pronounces words incorrectly?
I am so impressed that they are trying to speak English because I think learning English would be incredibly difficult. I know in learning in Spanish, the rules just seem much more straightforward. English seems almost to have so many exceptions that it seems to me more difficult a language to learn if you're not a native born to it. So I'm very impressed that anyone who's not a native born speaker is learning and trying and speaking English.
Would you ever correct them?
Only if they had asked me. If they had asked me to correct them if they made a mistake, I would. But I wouldn't directly if it was something like a mispronunciation of a word. If I had occasion to use that word back in the sentence, I might, so they could hear it and then think to themselves. But I wouldn't directly correct anyone.
And is there anything you'd like to say to my followers who are learning English?
I'm just, like I said, I'm so impressed that you're trying, and I think it's just great to be able to communicate with someone in another language. I think is just a really great skill.
All right, and now the next questions are all going to be about your state, Kentucky. And you've already said this, but just one more time, where exactly in Kentucky are you from, and what is it like there?
So I'm from Louisville, which is often, you can tell if someone is from Louisville because they say it Louisville and not Louisville or Louisville. Ugh, we don't like that. Louisville is the largest city in the state of Kentucky, but it's not the capital, and it's a kind of a mid-size city. And it sits on the border. It sits on the Ohio River, the border between Kentucky and Indiana.
So do you consider it to be the South or the Midwest?
It depends on who I'm talking to. Um, uh, it's a little more Midwest, but people from much further north consider it the South.
And if a foreign tourist is visiting the US, do you recommend that they visit Kentucky? Why or why not?
I would absolutely recommend that they visit Kentucky. Kentucky is beautiful. It's known for its bluegrass, which is a grass that has kind of a blue tint to it, and that's mostly in the middle of the state. And that's horse country, horse racing country. So you can see rolling farms with horses out galloping around in the fields. It has a lot of natural beauty, and it has a lot of fun things to do.
Okay, so then what specific parts of Kentucky do you recommend visiting, and what should people do there?
Sure. Louisville, I would obviously recommend that. The Kentucky Derby is run there, so there's Churchill Downs. There's horse racing going on, more than just the Kentucky Derby time. And they also have a lovely museum. It's also where they make the baseball bats for the professional baseball teams, and there's a museum there for that. But Louisville and Lexington, which are about 75 miles apart, and in between them is horse country, so you can see both. And Louisville and Lexington and the area in between are also known for making bourbon. So there's a bourbon trail there that you can go from distillery to distillery and learn about how they make bourbon and sample a lot of bourbon.
And obviously, one thing that a lot of people think about when they hear Kentucky is KFC. But is fried chicken actually especially popular in Kentucky, or is that just random?
I mean, it's as popular in Kentucky as it is in other parts of the South, but it was created in Kentucky because there was a real Colonel Sanders who really did create the recipe, and then eventually sold it off to, it became a big conglomerate.
Okay, so we've mentioned bourbon and we've mentioned KFC. Are there any other foods that Kentucky is known for?
Bourbon is the big one. There's also connected to the Kentucky Derby, there's a dessert called Derby pie, which is as if a pecan pie met chocolate chips. So it's really good.
And what's something that you think is unique about Kentucky or unique about the people of Kentucky?
Kentuckians we're an understated group of people. We tend to not forcefully say what we mean, which means sometimes gets confusing for people who are used to a more direct speaking style. But Kentuckians understand each other that, yes, we know what we mean. The other part about Kentucky is that it's a fairly religious state. A lot of people have a deep religious faith, but some of the main industries and the things Kentucky is known for are vices, which are horse racing and gambling, bourbon making, and cigarettes, because we grow a lot of tobacco.
And I understand that Kentucky accents can be very different depending which part of the state that you're from. So, can you tell me a little bit about the accent in the part that you are from, and also whether or not you think that you have that accent?
Um, Louisville, because it's a city and it's just across from Indiana, doesn't have quite as much accent. But I, in particular, have less of a Kentucky accent than most Kentuckians. And my children say when I'm on the phone talking to my mother, I will have more of an accent. So it can come and go. But yes, it's more, it's kind of a little bit of a Southern accent, but not quite as much as you would get further south.
And can you think of any distinct features of that accent?
Well, I can do a little. It's like, well, y'all know that you don't need to be here. It's very lilting. Just yeah, kind of rises and falls, and vowels are drawn out maybe a little longer than others.
And can you think of any words or phrases that are unique to Kentucky?
It, in Kentucky, if something is falls over, it's tumped over. Um, so I've not heard that any other place. And there's a lot of fixin' to. I'm fixin' to do something is very popular.
And our final section is about the US in general. First question: what do you like most about living in the US?
Um, I like that it's such a big and diverse country, that there are people from all over, and that you can move around and live. You can live in the desert, you can live by the ocean, you can live in the mountains. You have lots of choices. and the different regions are all very interesting.
Next question. What does it mean to you to be American, or what makes someone American?
I think being an American is agreeing to the values that founded America. And I wish those values were more agreed upon by everybody.
Okay, and what is a value, custom, or idea that you think is either unique to the US or just more common in the US?
I think the emphasis on individualism and individual decision making is probably more prominent in the US than it is in other cultures. It's just a lot of emphasis on personal decision making outside the context maybe of the family or the society.
Is there anything that you think might surprise people who have never been to the US?
I think they would be surprised by how large it is. That and that there's obviously people know about New York and they know about LA, but there's just a humongous country in the middle, and how interesting and diverse that middle part of the United States is.
And finally, what's something that you want people from other countries to know about the US?
That that we are very friendly people, even when our government is not so friendly.
Okay, and that was our final question. So, Carol, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's all for this episode. And as always, if there are questions that you would like me to ask guests in future episodes, please leave a comment and let me know what you'd like me to ask them.